Welcome along to part 2 of our video tutorial series where we are learning how to create an endless runner game using Python code. I'll just give you a quick recap on what we did in the previous video tutorial. It doesn't look like much, we made a black screen. Okay, but what we did do was we set up the game screen dimensions, and we also put in some filled in rectangles, so a black sky and a brown ground. But as I mentioned in the previous video, we can't see that brown strip running along the bottom there just yet because there is a black strip over the top of it. That's a bit of a glitch with Mu and Pygame Zero, and that will fix itself up in this video, so we'll be able to see the brown ground working in just a moment. Okay, what we're going to be doing in this video is just finishing off the backdrop, I guess you could say. We're going to put a little animated bat that flies across the sky into our game. We're going to put the moon in the sky, and we might put some haunted houses along the horizon as well. Okay, so let's get started on that. What I'm going to do is just go back to the top section of my code here underneath the colors, and we might start with putting the moon into our game. So I'll just put in a comment that says moon, and I'm going to create a variable called moon and set that equal to actor. And we just need to check our account quickly in the images folder, what we called the moon file. There it is, it's called moon. So we just write moon, lowercase letters, inside quotation marks and brackets there. And that now attaches that moon image to the variable we just created called moon. Now we can set the coordinates for this picture by writing moon.x equals and moon.y equals. So we can choose the x and y coordinates where we want this moon positioned. So we know our width is 800 pixels. I might put this moon over on the far right hand side at about the 700 pixel mark. And for the height, we know the screen is 600 pixels height. We don't want it anywhere near the bottom, we want it up near the sky, so just a small number, maybe around 80, would look good. Now to see that moon actually appear in the game, we need to draw it on the screen, so we need to go down to this draw function at the bottom and just write moon.draw, open and close a set of brackets, and click play. And there we have it. You can see a moon now in the top right corner of our game screen. That'll look good. That's just going to sit there, not do anything exciting. Coming in underneath the moon section, what we'll put in next is the haunted house picture. So I'll just put haunted houses as the comment. I will put houses as the variable name and set it equal to actor, and then in brackets and quotation marks we will put in this houses image. Okay, so that houses image is now attached to the houses variable. Again, we can set up the x and the y coordinates, so houses.x equals houses.y equals. On the x-axis I want it smack bang in the center of the page. So if we're 800 wide as our game screen, halfway will be 400 pixels. Same for the y-axis here, so half of 600 is going to be 300. And that should get our haunted houses right in the middle of the page. Don't forget down the bottom we need to draw the houses into the game before we see them appear. So houses.draw just after moon.draw. Give that a run, and you can see the houses in the backdrop, and you can see that they are faded into the background there so they don't stand out too much. Okay, I purposely did that in Photoshop and dropped the opacity of these houses because I didn't want them standing out over the top of our main characters. Alright, so they are looking good. The next one I want to put in is the little bat. Now the bat's a little bit more complex because he's animated. If we go back into our images folder, we've got 4 pictures here that make up the bat. Bat 1, Bat 2, Bat 3, Bat 4. And we want them repeating on a bit of a loop, I suppose, to make it look like his wings are flying. Okay, so for the bat, we need to set up a variable first called bat. And for the actor, we've got 4 pictures, but we just select the first picture to attach to the bat variable for now. So we write bat1 inside a set of brackets. Next thing we are going to do is set its coordinates. So bat.x equals and bat.y equals. For now I'm just going to put it in the center of the page. I'm going to move it later on, but for now I want to put it in the center at about 400 on the x-axis, and I guess the y-axis could be about 100 for now. Now we're going to create a list with the 4 different animation pictures in it. So I'm going to call it bat.images equals, And inside this list, so the list has square brackets. We just need to write the names of those 4 images. So we've got bat1, comma, bat2, comma, bat3, comma, bat4, and then close off the square brackets. Now there's a set of quotation marks around each of those names as well. Okay, so they're the 4 pictures we want to include in our animation. Okay, so oops, I forgot to close off the quotation marks up there. That's what we need so far for our bat. Now, to get it into our game, we need to go right down the bottom and do the bat.draw. I'll put it after the houses. Okay, that looks good. Now, I'm not sure what this is going to do. We're definitely not finished yet. I just want to test it to see if you can actually see it yet. Yeah, there it is. So that's our bat in the game. Now, he is a bit too big for my liking. He stands out too much. So there's a way we can actually reduce the size of him. Up here in the bat section that we just did a moment ago, after you've brought the actor in, what we can do is write in, I think it's bat.scale. And we can scale down our bat. And I'm going to scale it down. At the moment, it's scaled to 1. So if I want something less than that, maybe half the size, I need to write 0.5. So that should make the bat half the size of what we just had. So bat.scale, oh, we don't put brackets around it, my mistake. So bat.scale equals 0.5. There we go. So the bat is a lot smaller now and looks like it belongs in the background. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now we've got to get him animated and moving. And the way we do that is we add in the update function. So one of the main functions, again, in Pygame Zero is the update function. Usually we have the update function and the draw function. Okay, so in the update function is where we'll get these bat wings moving. So we might put in a comment that says bat, and underneath it we're going to call up the animate function, bat.animate, and that should get the bat moving through these 4 images and create an animation. They'll just play on a loop. It'll show the first and the second and the third and the fourth and just loop back around and keep playing those images. So let's have a look, see what that does. There we go. So he's now animated. He's on a loop. He'll just keep moving those wings. He's going a little bit slow for my liking. I think we could probably speed him up a bit. So back outside the update function up the top here, you could put bat.fps, so frames per second. And I don't know if we need to use an equal sign here or a set of brackets. I think it's just an equal sign. So we know that our game runs at 60 frames per second, so I might get this bat moving about 10 frames per second, and we'll see what effect that has on the bat. So you can see he's going a little bit faster now. I think that looks pretty good. If we were to go something like 20 frames per second, I think it'd be too quick. Yeah, it looks a little bit fake, so maybe 15. We'll just test it to see. Still a bit too fast. I'm going to stick with 10. So 10 frames per second, that's what that FPS stands for, is the speed that our animation plays at. Okay, now that looks all well and good, but what I want the bat to do now is actually fly across the screen to make it look like he's moving rather than just sitting on the spot there. So what I might do is move my bat off the screen to start with. Okay, so instead of its x-axis being at 400, we're going to move it to, say, 900, which is off to the right-hand side of the screen. When the game starts, we will put bat.x equals bat.x minus 5, which should move the bat to the left of the screen. There we go, so he's going across pretty quick there. If you find that minus 5 too quick, slow it down, like minus 3 or something, and see if that's a little bit nicer. Yeah, it's not too bad. So bat.x equals bat.x minus 3. Now he flies off the screen and just keeps flying, and he'll keep flying forever if we don't tell him to stop. Okay, so what we need to do is go to the next line of code and do an if statement. So if the bat.x, so if its position on the x-axis is less than minus 50, which is just off the left-hand side of the page, so once it flies off the screen, then we're going to return him around to the right-hand side of the screen. So the bat.x will equal, we might get him in a random position on the x-axis. So we'll write random.randint, And I want a bit of a pause before he comes back across the screen. So if I set him to 800, then he'll just fly back on the screen straight away. So I'm going to set him to maybe 1000. So he's a little bit off the screen. And I'll put the second number as like 15,000. So he could end up as far away as x equals 15,000. That's a fair way to the right of the screen. Now I'll close those brackets up. So it could be any number between 1,000 and 15,000, which means he's going to be flying across the screen at random intervals. For the y value, we can probably make this a random number too. So how high up in the sky do we want him? That's what this bit is. So we'll do random.randint again. I won't make too much of a variation. Somewhere between 100 and about 250 down the page would be nice for the y value. So he does move up and down ever so slightly when he's flying across the screen. So let's just give that a quick test run. So you should see him come out pretty quick. That's because his initial position was set to 900 here, which is just off the right hand side of the page. Now we need to wait somewhere between 1,000 and 15,000 before the bat comes back on. There it is, flying across the screen. Okay, so he'll hit just off the left hand side of the screen here. That's the -50, and then he'll fly back around to the right, and we just have to wait until he ends up flying back across the screen again. And that will just repeat for the whole game. So it's just a bit of a background animation to make your game, I guess, look a little bit more realistic and hopefully immerse your player in the game a little bit more. Okay, so you see that was a fairly long wait before he came back on the screen there. So that's working well. Now just to tidy up a little bit of code that we did in our previous tutorial as well, this line here, bat.x equals bat.x minus 3. We can actually shorten that to bat.x minus equals 3. Okay, this is a shorter way of writing that line. So it's good practice to write in the shorter version, so you've got less code to process. That should still work fine. Yep. So that's looking good. So we've got in this video the moon, we've got the houses in, we've got the bat flying across the screen, and you can now see the ground, so that brown strip. Okay, we couldn't see that until we put this update function into our game, but now that that's in, we can see our brown strip working quite nicely. So that's all I will show you in this video. We've got the background all set now. In the next video we can start to get into the nitty-gritty of our game and hopefully get some more bits and bobs working, such as the zombie. Okay, so I'll see you in that video.